There we go. And then I will
Such a
also get us
such a
live.
calm voice. Recording in progress. Fasten your seatbelt.
That's right. Hmm. Well, and it's a wonderful day for this topic, Ruth. People are enjoying being outside, and it's been such a wild summer that, when we have these nice days to get some work done outside, it's a real joy.
I thoroughly agree. I was out actually planting a few plugs, little prairie plants this morning, right around the bird bath, some empty spots, some little blue stem, and some indigo, some blue indigo. And just digging in that prairie, it's still so moist because it was 3.5 inch rain like a week ago here. So I've been off watering and not watering much this summer, which has been tremendously awesome. Because that was like 15, 20 hours a week, every week during the drought, which we'll discuss. So
Yep, yep. Well, we'll let people, as we get ready to start here, we'll let people jump in on our trivia question. What Iowa woman is credited with starting the Iowa State Patrol? And if you need a hint, the Iowa State Library is named after this woman. Not the law library, which is in the Capitol, but the state law library. So,
Yeah. Well, everyone make your guess. We are recording. We're live streaming to Facebook, so you can find the recording there just immediately, right now, and when we are concluded. And I want to remind everyone, please let us know, Lunch and Learn Wise, what you'd like to see. You can email us anytime, give us your ideas. We're open to anything. We want to know what you all want. That makes the best content. So Aaron, I think I am all set, so we can get started when you're ready.
well, great. Well, welcome everyone. This is the Iowa Farmers Union Lunch and Learn series. This is part of our mission in the Iowa Farmers Union is to educate our members and members of the general public about issues that are important to family farming, to sustainable agriculture, and to thriving rural communities. And we are so grateful to have as our guest today, Ruth Rabinowitz. Thank you for being here, Ruth.
thanks for having me back. It's going to be fun to give you guys an update. I love Iowa Farmers Union.
Oh, well, we love having you, Ruth, and we are anxious to start our discussion. I'm going to take a quick detour, though, and talk about a couple of Farmers Union announcements about some important activities going on. The Iowa Farmers Union is sending farmers to Washington, D.C. for the National Farmers Union Fly-In, where we will be meeting with policy leaders from different government agencies and members of Congress and their staff, and conversing with other farmers, about 300 from around the country, will all converge in Washington. And of course, it's especially important this year as Farm Bill deliberations are going to be heating up, among many other topics that will be covered at the National Farmers Union Fly-In, taking place September 8th to 11th. And if you're interested, let us know. Give me an email at alayman@iowafarmersunion.org if you're interested in attending. Next, I wanted to alert people to a very important conference that is taking place September 25th and 26th at Drake University with the Harkin Institute. It's the Industrial Farm Animal Production, the Environment, and Public Health Conference taking place at Drake University at the Harkin Institute. It is going to feature a whole plethora of wonderful folks who are addressing industrial agriculture and animal production in a very serious way. The confirmed speakers include Austin Frerick, who wrote Barron's, Tom Philpott, who wrote the book Perilous Bounty, Chris Jones, who wrote Swine Republic, and we'll learn from all sorts of experts in this field, including John Eichert and Jerry Schnurr and Matt Lehman and David Osterberg and Kendall Thu and many, many others. So join together on September 25th and September 26th for that conference at the Harkin Institute. We put a link in the chat for you to learn more about it and to sign up. So we're looking. Also, I want to remind people, if you are at the Farm Progress Show this coming week in Boone, stop in at the Iowa Farmers Union booth. We're going to have a great presence at the Farm Progress Show taking place in Boone. Lots and lots of people headed to Boone next week. But that is it for our announcements. But before I forget, we should check in on our trivia question, which asked what Iowa woman is credited with starting the Iowa State Patrol. And we had, and the second guess is that this person is the state library in Iowa is named after this person. Ola Babcock Miller was Iowa's first Secretary of State, elected in 1932. And she convinced the state legislature that a statewide law enforcement agency was needed, particularly on Iowa's highways. And the patrol was created in 1935 and placed under her control, and it grew from there. And she is the state library in Iowa, just across the street from the Capitol, is named after Ola Babcock Miller, a real institution in Iowa history. But let's turn our attention to today's topic. We are so grateful. We are joined by Ruth Rabinowitz, who's a farmland manager and owner in Madison County. And we're going to talk about her journey of converting her farm here in Iowa for other purposes that are so in line with conservation goals. And we'll learn about this through her journey. And lastly, we'll touch on what her inspiration was. Ruth holds her bachelor's of arts from the University of California, Santa Cruz, and she's been managing Oxbow Farms both here in Iowa and South Dakota for more than a decade. And her goals about soil health and conservation of natural features of the landscape and adding Iowa native grasses and forbs and trees all go into her work. And we are so grateful that she's here to tell us more about it. So thanks for being with us, Ruth.
Oh, delighted to be here. Thank you for having me back.
Well, take us through what the one that's going on Oxbow Farm.
Okay, so I took 2.5 acres out of corn soybean production, which you're looking at the land right there.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to the renter, to the tenant, just don't come in this field entrance anymore. I'm going to plant oats. So I planted oats right after corn was harvested. That was mowed down. The house was built. And then after they were done kind of building the house, Pheasants Forever had designed 51 species of grasses and forbs of the Iowa natives that were then seeded. So this is kind of the before picture. Literally, the decks are still being built as the house landed. This manufactured home had come down the road.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is what it looks like now.
Oh my.
It's kind of the same angle. Those are silver maple trees that are actually only 4 years old and they're already huge. And then this is a 4-year-old, pretty mature looking prairie here. I'm still getting mostly the early successional plants here. A lot of gray-headed coneflower that the goldfinches, the state bird, we have like 20 of them in trees here. Just feed on those all winter. So that's what it looks like now. It was basically seeds. This is not plugs. This was all just seeded out.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Looks wonderful. Wow.
And that's the view to the shared pond. It's a 5-acre pond. There's the prairie. We are doing a mowed green fire break that was also hand seeded by me primarily of multiple clovers. My favorite now is sort of the white clover because it sort of stays shorter, adds nitrogen, and it has the flower for bees. So that's the inspiration. I'm running my farm business, and that's what I get to look at now. It's not a mowed lawn was never going to be a mowed lawn. And I just want to list off the species, what we've seen. We've had bald eagles, pheasant, owls, mink, raccoon, possum, chipmunks, rabbits, red fox on camera, Baltimore orioles, hummingbirds, bluebirds, red-winged blackbirds, coyote, trumpeter swans, Canada geese, woodcock, crawdads, turtle frogs, monarch butterflies, dragonflies, and a lot of fireflies, like hundreds of them, just to name a few. Yeah, so everyone moved back in. It was corn and soybeans for decades, and then now they have homes. So I guess we'll do.
That's look at that. Those are beautiful pictures.
Thank you. I was a photographer professionally for 2 decades before switching careers, and pictures tell 1,000 words. I mean, it's just layers and layers of habitat. Some of it I'm a little scared to walk in because I'm like not even sure who's living in there. So I have to kind of be careful of the really tall areas. And I always have my tall muck boots on for sure. And but there's that picture, and there's a few more in here. This was a storm was coming in. It was really dramatic. We got like a pretty good couple inches of rain off this. And then on the left side is the big blue stem. This was mostly seeded to pollinator, to forbes, being more like 80% of the mix, and grasses being maybe 20%, because apparently the grasses kind of start to take over time. So I wanted a lot of flowers. I think if I was going to do it again, I'd probably put a little bit more grasses of the shorter grasses in here, perhaps. But I'm actually really happy with what we have in here. I also had worked pheasants forever. This was a waterway on the right side, a very old historical waterway that feeds the pond. That's what fills up the pond. And basically there was corn and soybeans right to that waterway. So Pheasants Forever designed this riparian buffer, and there's 175 shrubs right there. And prairie is a lot easier than trees. just to let you know. I think if I did it again, I probably wouldn't plant so many trees, because they were hand watered through 3 years of drought. This year we've hardly had to water at all because we've been blessed with Mother Nature's rains. They've had to be hand weeded, mulched, tree protected with deer fencing around. I even do some pruning on them. And then of course I do oscillating sprinklers and watering, and hand watering individuals as well. So it's been a lot of labor of love for these trees.
And I'm sure, considering last year's weather conditions, that was a challenge with as dry as we were. Did you have those conditions?
Oh yeah, we were really dry for sure. This is my niece and nephew, just to give scale of the size of the trees. He's like 6'2", so they are taller than him now. So that's like my scale. And they really loved coming out here. About 2 weeks ago, they were out here for the Iowa State Fair and everything. They're from Berkeley, California, and they're kind of shaking their head like, well, you're doing what out here, And then we did grow our first vegetable garden this year. We put a deer fence up, and the cucumbers are going crazy with all the rains we've had. We've got the tomatoes and peppers and some carrots and squash and a lot of basil. So that was a life goal of mine, was to actually do some food gardening in Iowa, in the soil, not in raised beds, not in pots. It's right in the ground. And so I wanted to say that we're getting a lot of produce, and we're doing a lot of pickling, and Cresta, who I farm with, Cresta Nutter, tremendous, amazing person, doing a lot of this canning and jamming and pickling and all these things. And this is a great book that I wanted to let the folks know about. I'm going to read 2 quotes from this book. that are
Mhm.
pretty short. Walk into a prairie at any time of day, and it's like entering a jacuzzi bath. You're delightfully vulnerable, soothed of everything you've dragged around all day, trusting in the place to hold you close, to give you back your one wild and precious life. And I definitely agree with that. And then the second quote is, gardening from a prairie perspective means coming to terms with what we've eroded and how we can revive wildness in our communities.
Hmm.
So I guess next slide, we'll see what else is there. So this is a cue to care, which is part of this book. A lot of neighbors and people don't understand what you're doing. They think everyone else is mowing the lawn. What's going on with this house? Is this a bunch of weeds? This is like weird. So if you have signs like this, and these are signs that they can see from my driveway,
Sure.
it's really helpful because that's the cues to care that they talk about in this book. Having sculpture,
Mhm.
having mowed paths, having benches laid out there, having, things that look like someone has designed this, helps like the layperson just driving by understand that it's not just you let things go and you don't care about anything. Yeah, it's been a tremendous journey. I think oh wait, is that the last slide, right? I really want to inspire people to do this themselves, whether
Mm.
it's just a little bit in their front lawn or a little bit in their backyard. That mowing takes gasoline and time and all these things, and there's really no habitat there. And so I have gotten so much enjoyment from watching all the species that I just listed have homes. I mean, I see the rabbits, they come out, they see me, they're getting more tame, and then they run
Mm.
into the prairie, and then we also are leaving large piles of wildlife sticks and rocks and driftwood and all kinds of things so that they have a place to be in the winter time when
Mm.
it's really cold out.
Mhm.
Normally I would have like wood chipped it or taken it to the dump or thought it was a
Right.
mess, but wildlife wants messes. They want your place to not be super tidy.
Sure.
And I've just been learning so much through the Xerces Society and Pheasants Forever and the Iowa Prairie Network. I just went to that conference. It was wonderful.
Mm.
And this is a climate solution. I'm part of Climate and Land Leaders and WFAN and PFI, and we're all working towards climate solutions. So this prairie is actually sequestering a lot of carbon,
Mm.
and the big blue stem roots can be 20 feet deep.
Mm.
So
Wow.
it's and we get those big rains. We get a 4-inch rain, prairie can take it. It just absorbs it. It just is like a big sponge out there. And I'm not worried about flooding, it's gonna use all that water.
Sure. Well, these are just wonderful pictures and a great illustration of the work, Ruth. What inspired you to take these steps?
I was raised with a grandmother that was in Michigan, Grandma Pearl, that was hugely into birding. My
Mm.
father, we had like a little organic garden and chickens in the state fair in Arizona. We've always had landscape that was more edibles and things. And as I realized, like what was here in Iowa, it was tall grass prairie. And
Mm.
we as a society have, the moldboard plow by John Deere 100 so years ago changed the whole landscape.
Mhm.
What can I do to put some things back together?
Mhm.
And what belongs here? And all these specialized bees and butterflies are looking for these native species. They don't want the exotic, made in a lab, hybridized, whatever it is, at the nursery. They want natives. They know their mouthpieces work with natives. So I just wanted to like a reparation, really, like an apology to the land. I felt like really lost with how I could kind of feel connected out here. And prairie has been a very grounding, I mean, just extremely soul work. The weeding is kind of intense. You need to not plant too much prairie because the weeds really move in. Our biggest, I had to learn all the prairie, I had to learn all the weeds. I had to learn all the trees because I'm not from here. I've only lived here for 3 years. So I knew all the stuff from the Pacific, from Santa Cruz and all that, and Arizona. I knew the cactus. I had to learn a whole different vocabulary. And thank goodness I'm a plant nerd that is interested in this stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's sort of like the Holy Grail. I mean, like when you have a good prairie, it just all comes together. I mean, I go to sleep listening to owls and I wake up listening to pheasants. It doesn't get much better than that. I'm just,
No.
it's amazing.
Yeah. Well, and we have a couple questions that have come in, and they're related to the topics that you're discussing already. But one of them is just from a practical standpoint. Boy, that's a lot of trees. How did you water them? Were you able to have access to water, or did they come from the pond that you had created in that space?
Yes. So I did a permaculture design certificate with Vital Cycles in Santa Cruz for an entire year before a shovel ever hit the ground here. So as I developed the house design, developed where the shed was going to be, where the garage was going to be, the emergency shelter, the wood shed, the fire pit, all these things were put into zones and sectors. I realized, wow, I can't reach a hose from the house way into the top of the teardrop up there on the design. So as the water was coming in, I paid like $1,000 or whatever dollars more to have 3 hydrants placed where I could put 200-foot hoses. So I was able to reach all my plants with hoses, 200-foot hoses everywhere.
Yeah. Always an important consideration when you're designing, isn't it? That's great. So how do you so all this work is fit into the Iowa landscape and using Iowa natives? How does this fit into your vision for Iowa agriculture and Iowa rural landscapes?
I think I'm inspiring the neighborhood. Yeah, people slow down when things are in bloom here. You sort of hear the cars ripping through and then they go, because they're looking, because there's like a lot of yellow and a lot of excitement here. I've had people pull into my driveway, how do I make my yard look like that? It fits in. I've got a gravel road, a lot of dust. I'm putting oil on the road right now, a couple times a year through the county, get some less dust. Eventually, I'm going to have such a great windbreak with the shrubs and trees. They're going to catch a lot of that dust and then block a lot of the north winds. And the birds are all over everything, even at this, they're nesting in small trees right now, like little, 3-year-old trees. They've already got families in there. So it's just, we need more diversity. And so by having all this diversity in the buffers, the borders, I mean, I went from corn and soybeans, monoculture, to, I don't know, 80 different things out here. I mean, so I hope a disease never comes through, but I only have 5 silver maples. So if there's a disease for those, it's 5. I only have, 3 Norway spruce. I have 3 eastern white pine, 5 red maple. So yeah, you want to have that diversity. So it's not like all elms or something.
Sure.
Yeah.
You talked about some of the help that you sought out and received in order to make this project work. Highlight some of those resources that people might want to look into.
Yeah. So the book itself, The Prairie Up, I think there's a link to buy it on Amazon. I get no cut on this. Uh, there's a whole resources in the back that's huge in that book. It's great. And you can get it at the West Des Moines Library. That's originally how I checked it out. And then I purchased a copy. So the library has it. The Xerces Society has tons of information on, the best plants to grow, what's a native thistle. Pheasants Forever did a kind of a free design of the riparian buffer and windbreak with spacing, appropriate plants. Xerces will also look at your seeding mix for you too, and go over it and you can add species to it. And Iowa Prairie Network, I mean, I just went to their conference. I would recommend going to any of their events. There's a lot out there. You start to tap in. There's a lot on the web. There's a lot of Zooms you can listen to, a lot of recorded prairie stuff you can listen to. So.
Oh, those are excellent resources for us. Well, this is what we have. This conversation could go on forever, and we have a limited amount of time. So I apologize for that. But tell us what makes you most optimistic after doing this project that seems to be yielding such great results.
I was really shocked at how quickly the wildlife and the pollinators moved back in. It's like they were hanging out on the edges, and then all of a sudden they had a home and they could move in. And so we've really taken so much away from them, where they really kind of in the ditches, really, if you don't the ditch, And so you actually give them a decent plot of land, 2 acres. I have CRP that's 150 acres in South Dakota. I have CRP in Union County that's 50 acres around a pond. The pheasant come back. The bobwhite quail come back. May not be immediately, but this is pretty quick to have this much diversity in just 3-ish years. So, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Very encouraging to see. That's great. So, well, Ruth, this has been a wonderful discussion, and I think we have information on how to learn more in the chat and how to get in touch with you. And I know that this is just the start of a lot of great conversation about it, but seeing the pictures and hearing your narrative about it really brings it to life. So thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you too. And I just wanted to say one thing, that at the DNC, Keenan Thompson talked about the 2025 project. And you should look at page 304 is about getting rid of the Conservation Reserve Program.
Yeah.
And I was very disheartened to read that. And I just want people to know that that's in there and what page it's on, page 304 of that document. So CRP, I've used it a lot. I'm beyond the levels of CRP. This is not CRP around my house, Conservation Reserve Program. This is not enrolled, but
right.
Yeah, I think prairie is a great climate solution. It's a great way to help the whole planet out.
Yeah, and what an important role it plays in our whole rural landscape and Iowa agriculture as a whole. So I'm really glad you brought that up, Ruth. So, thank you again. This has been a wonderful conversation. And just the start of lots of great thoughts that will be shared. So thanks again, Ruth.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. This has been the Iowa Farmers Union Lunch and Learn series. This is our opportunity to share about important issues that are so vital to family farming and sustainable agriculture and thriving rural landscapes and communities. So if you haven't had a chance to join the Iowa Farmers Union yet, please do so today. We know that we can get more accomplished by working together, having these conversations, sharing ideas, sharing strategies on how to reach out. So if you haven't had a chance to join yet, please do so today. So everyone, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Christina. And again, Ruth, thank you so much.
Love being here. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.